Hello, everybody, and welcome back to DevDive Side Table. I am your host, Steve Fontana, and we're going to talk all about tabletop gaming. And we have quite a crew with us here from Smirk Dagger Games. We have Curt, Covert. We have Gaeton, Dragone, or Dragone.
You got it.
Dragoon. Oh, Dragoon. Okay. Ivan Turner. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some fun talking about games.
Yeah, howdy.
Quick little backstory. Walking through PAX Unplugged this year. It's the first year I could finally go. I was sick for like the last 3. Couldn't make it. Finally got to go. And I saw this little game here. This game is killer. And I saw some people playing it at a table. And I saw them laughing and a monster chasing them throughout this tiny little spaceship. Picked it up, bought it, didn't even think twice about it. And it's one of my favorite games to play right now with like new people and unsuspecting guests that come over and come over to hang out.
That's great to hear.
Yes. Before we get into just Smirk and Dagger and the game itself, I just want to welcome everyone that might be new to the show. This is DevDive Side Table, a conversational podcast where we take a deep dive into the world of indie tabletop game development and uncover the stories behind the games we love. We are going to post bi-weekly. So if you're watching on youtube.com/IndieRift, please hit that subscribe button, the whole thing to get the algorithm to like me and the show. And Smirk and Dagger. So do the whole thing. We're also going to be on all podcast services. Just search DevDive Side Table. We also have DevDive Proper, which is the video game, indie video game interview show. So you can check that out as well. All right. So gentlemen, why don't we just kind of go around the horn? We'll do some introductions, what you do, and we'll just kind of swing it from there. Curt, why don't you start the introductions?
Sure.
You're the I hear the seasoned mind behind these.
Well, so yeah, I've been making board games for 22 years now. So I'm the owner of Smirk and Dagger Games. Started out in 2003, and at that time it was purely a hobby business. I was making basically one game a year and slowly built the brand over a long time while I had a full day job, a rather demanding marketing job. And so this is what I did from 9 to midnight because I have an absolute passion for it. Happily, it kept on growing. And here we are, now 22 years later, and I put on my first employee, Gaeton.
All right, Gaeton, welcome, man.
Howdy. So I cannot claim to have 22 years of experience, not even close. But I do have a history in gaming, and also kind of the industry by proxy. I did retail, friendly local game store retail for, I think like 6 years or so. And had a lot of exposure to different communities, like the tabletop community during that time. And I actually met Curt because Curt would come to the stores I worked at to test new prototypes and put games in front of the staff and get some opinions and some feedback for his development work. So now I've the last year or so been really stepping into game development. That's kind of like my circle. Curt does everything under the sun, and development is more my focus. So taking the designs and really bringing them to life, usually with constant communication and work with the designer, which in this case for this game is Caroler is Ivan. So Ivan's turn.
Look at you guys. Are you like professionals? And, like, this is wonderful. It's in the order that you're on the screen too. We're just kicking it down. It's like you guys know each other or something. Ivan, what's up, man?
So hi. So I'm actually a high school teacher, right? That's my full-time job. But I got it started with games. I also worked retail back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I had my own store, and we comic books. We did a lot of games, and that was really where I started tinkering with stuff I did as a kid. And then in like 2010 or so, we started developing a game, and we took it to Kickstarter. Me and a couple of friends of mine, we took it to Kickstarter. And then from there, I just started developing more and more games. And that has kind of been kind of my side thing. I mean, teaching is what pays the bills.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been developing games now pretty consistently for the past like 10 or 12 years.
Mhm.
Awesome. And how did you and Smirk and Dagger, like, how did that whole thing like come about? Because like the dream is to find somebody to make your game, right? Like you could design games all, till you're blue in the face, but getting somebody that believes in it and throws it in a box and gets it in people's hands all over the world, like that's a completely different story altogether.
Yeah. So I mean, my first game I kickstarted and we self-published it and decided never again. 'Cause,
For good reason.
Yeah, it takes a lot of different types of skills to be a publisher and a designer. We're not all Covert. So but this particular game, and I've showed Curt quite actually a number of games, but this particular game I kept putting into his hands again and again and again. Here's a new version, here's a new version, here's a new version, until I finally got that email that said, okay, I'm converted, let's make it. And
That's
it
awesome.
was very exciting.
Well, you're missing out a whole story, a whole big chunk of the fun of the story.
We have questions part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, I have questions too, but I want to know these questions. These are very important questions, I feel.
So probably was it the second or third time you actually put it in front of me?
Yeah, it was a Gen Con, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. In any case, this started out as essentially like an 18 card in a baggy kind of a game, very much a hip pocket kind of a game. And back when I first saw the game, we really just didn't do games like that. I always love highly interactive games with, some level of, emotional roller coaster. And so this naturally kind of felt into things I enjoy, but we just didn't have a place for it in the line. And the last time that we saw it, I said, all right, you've made some changes. Let me go take it back. We're at Gen Con and I've got my entire crew, at the house. It's a big player game. So let's get everyone around the table and try it. The rules should be simple. It's like 18 cards. Well, so at the time, there were some gray areas in the wording of some of the cards, and we put it to the table with like 8 or 10 of us, and all of a sudden we're just like, but what, how, wait a second. And so I had Ivan's, cell number in my phone. And so I really wasn't thinking, I didn't say, oh, hi, Ivan, this is Curt. He just sees this unknown number show up on his phone like 10 p.m. at night. And it just says, we have questions. And the entire group at the table is like, you said what? he must think like the CIA is after him. Anyway, so it was very funny. But really interestingly, even then it was like, oh, we like it, but I'm not sure. Like we were kind of on the fence. And shortly after Gaeton came on board, we really started taking a look at the line and gaps we had in the line. And at one point, I think both Gaeton and one other person on the team had said, what we could really use is like a game that would be like a automatic insta-buy at the booth, like $10-15, group play, and it's like, whoa, well, wait a second. And so we started talking about this game is killer again. And that's where, we took it from there and on into development. So.
That's awesome. And it's got a nice small footprint too. It's like, it's nothing that's going to take up too much room on your table or on your shelf for that matter. It's like, it's and that's exactly what happened to me, right? Like exactly what you wanted to happen happened to stupid me who's walking around PAX Unplugged, sees people playing and go, and they're all laughing, they're doing their thing. And I was like, marketing, and saw it on the shelf, grabbed it, and that was it. It was like literally like a 3-minute conversion from walking through the booth to it was like I got punched in the face by Tyson. I didn't know what the hell was happening. It's like, oh, I spent money on a game. Okay, cool. Shove that in the backpack. You mentioned that you weren't sure where it would fit in your lineup. What does that mean? Like, it, as far as a lineup goes, is it like a release lineup, like where you have things that are scheduled and you don't want to have too much? Like, what does that mean?
Well, so it can mean a lot of things. In this particular case, what it meant was, as it was originally pitched, it was really intended to be a game like you could fit in a sleeve of cards. Like it, and it was very, it would have been hard for me to market. Now, Button Shy, that's what they do, right? So you'd think, oh, that's probably the perfect publisher for it. And at the time I was like, yeah, I don't know if like a $10 game in a like really I don't know if that's got a role in what we are currently doing, what we're trying to build. And to be fair, I was trying to diversify the line. I was trying to get, you know, more cooperative, more almost Euro style. You know, we ended up with a bunch of abstracts. So I was trying to build a different space for our games. And it was, you know, again, it was the right time, right game when we finally said, oh, we actually have a gap in the line that we want to fill. And each publisher has either a different kind of ethos on the types of games they like to print, or just like, you know, as you mentioned, like, we've got too many games of this type, so we're not going to look for more of that. But where else can we fill, or what can we lean into that we already do so well? So it depends.
I'm going to ask a nuts and bolts question here. Does your relationship with your manufacturing partners and what they do also dictate what kind of games that you might want to throw in your lineup? Like if there's something that you know your manufacturers do well and do quickly, maybe not throwing something completely new to them with lots of miniatures or whatever it may be. Does that have any weight when you're making decisions on what you want in your lineup?
Not stated in that way. The decisions that any developer will end up doing will absolutely figure in the manufacturing aspect. And you'll make decisions on materials and, you know, how you want the game presented and the table appeal, and all of that is part of development. But the manufacturing, most manufacturers out there are pretty good at most of the you know, the game components that you would ever want. And if there's something that's really specialty, then you can kind of hunt down and find the right printer for the job.
Gotcha.
And I always first think about, what does the game need? Does the cost of doing that thing end up driving the cost to a place that is still comfortable for that game experience, or is it overproduced or underproduced, or
Gotcha.
you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
So in the case of like right out of the gate, when it was an 18 card pack, I was like, well, that felt underproduced for what I do. And I think in the course of development, what we ended up finding were avenues to make it feel like an amazing deal. When you get that $15 box and you open it up and there's a neoprene mat in it, like, right, the perceived value of that is through the roof.
So what you're saying is I got ripped off, is what you're saying.
No,
What you're saying is it's a perceived value.
Well, so
No, I'm just kidding.
Regardless of what actual values it, everything that you encounter ends up being a perceived value. Does that feel like a good deal or a bad deal, regardless of how much it costs? I've had games that are way more expensive to produce, but the gameplay or the way that component interacts, you feel like it should be cheaper anyway. So it really depends. It's both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's perfect scale. So Ivan, where did this come from? Like, it's 18 cards. You know, it's a super simple. So for those who don't know, why don't we go over just simple game mechanics? What is the game? We'll start there because I think that is a great place to kind of bring us into why this fits so well in this tiny little package and why it feels like a steal. So tell us what is the game is killer Alien on board.
So all the players, it plays 3 to 10, and you play the members of a crew of this tiny little cargo ship, where this creature has got loose on board, and it's killing you off. So the goal is to try and get rid of the creature before the creature gets rid of all of you. So every round you get 2 cards, and each card is sort of double-ended, not double-sided, but double-ended. So the top of the card has just like a location on the ship, and the other side of the card, right, if you flip it over, it has an action. So you'll have 2 cards, and you will play them both on your turn, but you play one as the action and one as the location, and then you have to choose, you know, in which, because when it's your turn, you're only going to play 1 card, and then when it's your turn again, you're going to play the other card. So in which order you play those cards, there's a little bit of strategy and decision making there. And that's basically how you play. The thing about it is, and I think the thing that makes it so much fun is really the only way to there are 2 ways to kill the alien. One, you figure out where it's going to be and blow up that room. Or 2, you are the last person on board, and you draw one of the cards, which there are like a third of the deck is a card that says, if you're the last person on board, this is how you just kill the alien.
Right.
But ultimately, when you're blowing up rooms, there are also crew members in those rooms.
Yeah.
So you're blowing up your friends. You know, which I think is like the most fun part of the game is sort of when you know, it's cooperative. We all want to kill the alien, but you know,
sorry, Ivan. No, it's a battle royale, my friend. You are Hulk Hogan throwing 29 guys over the top rope. That's what this is. There was one card that was absolutely hilarious to get, and it was the one where your location is like a freezer. Basically, yes. Like you're hiding in a freezer, in cold storage, and it was like one of the first ones I got. And here it is, cold storage. I have to read this. Okay, it's an ongoing action, which means this is the only card you get. You never redraw unless you figure out where the alien is. That's basically what it is. But you only have 3 chances to guess correctly because you're stuck in a freezer freezing to death. So this completely changed the gameplay, and it's just 1 card. 1 card completely changed strategy. The point of the rounds for you as that player in that cold storage completely changed. That's the kind of hook that I think really gets the table going, is like seeing the different permutations of who's going to be where, and slowly the ship is getting smaller because, you know, each room is getting sealed off as you go, and it becomes this claustrophobic mess of, you know, frantically trying to get out of this spaceship. Taking a look at the map, what I did with my friends was, if we did kill the alien or if we died, we kind of did a little TTRPG flair with it and like described what happens and like made it this like theatrical thing, because it's very simple. It's a lot, you know, you leave a lot to the imagination, but we've all seen Alien. We know what's going on in this game. We know what's happening right now. It leaves a lot open to you, and it's very quick. That's the other thing. It's a very quick game. You could finish. You could all, if you have 4 of you playing, all 4 of you could be dead in 6 minutes, depending on if you know what the cards do and you understand the rules and everything like that. Brilliant. It really is. Honestly, it's one of the more brilliant games that I picked up at PAX this year. I have so much fun playing it. So how did Gaeton help get this thing going?
Well, so one thing I can tell you is, for example, the card you just mentioned about being locked in the freezer, that's Gaeton.
That's Gaeton.
So,
well. I can tell you a little bit about my my development philosophy and how that showed up in the card that you liked. So one thing that I frequently ask myself when I work on projects, and Killer was honestly my first start to finish project as a game developer. I was there when it was signed all the way through its, hit the shelves and is now on a podcast.
That's awesome.
So a lot of pride in this game for me as well. And one question I always ask myself is, what can I do to tap into every possible axis of play to make a very full gameplay experience? So you liked Cold Storage because it breaks the normal paradigm of how you're supposed to play the game. So when I'm looking at different card effects to try to put into a game like This Game is Killer, I try to think to myself, well, what is a mechanic or what is like kind of a facet of the game that could be flushed out a little bit more with some extra development time? So for Cold Storage, my thought was, well, what if you don't actually have to care if anyone's trying to kill you or if the alien's going to attack your location because you're not anywhere? But now
and
if
you turn
I
it into a guessing game.
Yeah, and now but now how do I create the downside for you?
Yeah.
Like now what do I do to make it a risk? And so this idea that we've all seen it, like the basically the dunce of the horror movie gets themselves killed and it wasn't actually the bad guy.
Right.
Well, if you can't guess right for this card, you're that dunce.
Yeah,
like you're the guy that
frozen in carbonite.
You're getting the Jack Nicholson treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
a popsicle. So so basically I ended up coming in and honestly just tried to flex some different gameplay directions out of a very consistent pattern of play 2 cards. And that was kind of like my main addition, was flushing out different kinds of things, like the delayed fuse that blows up a turn later, so you have to plan around something that's happening next turn. That was one that I had as well.
Yeah.
One that naturally came upon my group when we were playing. I think we played about 2 or 3 rounds, and I said, what would make this really interesting and kind of messed up? What if we didn't know our locations? Like we just kept them face down, and then we flipped them, and then it's just chaos, and then we just see what happens. And then lo and behold, the game we decided to do that, we got the loss of comms card.
Hi again, still me here.
We're like, oh, we should probably not do that because it's a mechanic in the game that we should probably embrace.
So that's part of when you're a designer, like finding the right publisher. Like finding a publisher is one hurdle, but finding the right publisher is a whole other hurdle. Because as a designer, when building this game, as many times as I tested it and I went over it with the people that I know, it's still only one perspective. As soon as I put it into Curt and Gaeton's hands, it was phone calls. It was like, hey, first of all, again, he said it was 18 card deck. I only had 6 locations, so they added 2 locations.
Oh, that's
right.
I forgot about that.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
which added 6 more cards, which apparently are the 6 best cards in the game, because you keep picking out Gaeton's cards. But there were other things like one of the best improvements to what I did was the corporate spy card.
Yeah.
Where I had made that a card, and it was just like a one-off. Like, you're the corporate spy, and if you find the alien that turn, you kill everybody and disappear. And then I had made it into like a variant kind of idea where you could just keep it in play. And Curt at some point was like, no, this is the way this card is going to play, and it's going to be an ongoing action. And that, as far as I know, that was really kind of the birth of ongoing actions.
Yeah.
That was how that developed. So that's what I mean. So it's like, it's when you build something, you don't necessarily, it's such tunnel vision often enough. So it was really like that. Just and think about how small of a game it is. And I mean, you look at it as a tiny little game, and I see how much they expanded it once they turned it over to them.
Right. And that's like a whole conversation itself. Is actually something I wanted to ask you. So you develop something, you believe in it because you're approaching Curt, right? You believe in this product. You know that once you get it in people's hands, they're going to enjoy it. Did you have any sort of reservations to people changing what you've created, or and adding to, like, maybe you didn't tell them, and that's fine. Maybe today's the therapy session where you kind of let all that out. But like, when I show, if I'm making a I run D&D sometimes, I try and run a weekly game, and like when I come up with a campaign setting or a really cool idea or whatever, and I show it to somebody else, and they're like, oh, what if this, and I'm just, there's like a little part of me that dies a little, like, oh, it wasn't perfect, I'm sorry, like, I'll give up now. Like, did you have any of those kinds of thoughts?
So that's absolutely true. And when I first started building games, when I built the Kickstarter game with my friends, and they'd come at me and they'd be like, yeah, we need to change this a bit. And that wasn't just like a little part of me dying. That was a huge argument. You know, I would go to the mat for every little piece of nonsense. And then like 2 weeks later, I'd come back and I'd say, oh, no, wait, you were right. And so over time, I learned to develop that idea of, oh, there's feedback coming in, and I need to actually process this feedback rather than just instantly dismiss it, fight about it, and then process it later. But that having been said, yes, that little piece of you never goes away. Whenever somebody says something to you about changing your design or even just a tiny little critique, right or wrong, you always feel that a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. It makes it hard when you get people to play test it, because people are always throwing stuff at you.
Right.
This isn't working, or this isn't working for me. And it's like, I need to step back, take a breath. Is this valid criticism? And I began over time to look at things through an analytical view. And yeah, I mean, it's hard, but it's an important part of being a designer. If you cannot take that criticism and that feedback and allow it to fully develop your game, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, so from the publisher point of view, which is kind of the other side, I came from a background of being a creative director. So working with creative people and providing direction and feedback is something that it's a skill, really, to get to give people enough guardrails and enough latitude to do the thing that they're talented in doing, to still get you to the right spot. So when I'm providing feedback, whether it is putting someone on task to help create the solution, or I have a solution that I want to introduce and pressure test, we are not a publisher where we sign a game and you'll see it when it's done, thanks. We very much believe in the collaborative spirit of the process. We want to keep the designers involved. And yeah, in the end, we're going to be plunking down the cash to make the final decision. So we will make the final call. But the collaboration, sometimes it's easy for us to get tunnel vision too. So the constant collaboration is something that benefits the design, because we're really all pulling in the same direction. We are trying to make the game the best possible experience on the table that it can be.
Yeah, no, totally. And like, I always have a bit of reservation when I'm playing somebody who's basically playtesting their game at a PAX or something like, or a convention, where they have that 1 6-foot or 8-foot table, and they have the one copy of the game that they had made, and they're sitting down and they're explaining the rules, and they could see your eyes glazing over because there's just so many rules.
Yeah.
And then I have this reservation to say, does this person want to know that I think something is too convoluted, or do they want to just know what I like? Or, you have to constantly have that give and take, because I take it seriously. If I'm playing somebody's one copy of a game that they truly believe in, I want to help them. Like, just as a player and, as a creative mind, I want to help a person like that. It goes back to my roots of like theater and film too. With a good director doesn't say, hey, do it this way. This is how this is how I want you to say the line. They say, try 2 different ways. You know what I would like to see? I would like to see you get a little bit more X, Y, and Z with this one. Right. And then you just kind of go with it. And then you kind of understand, oh, this is what he's the vibes he's trying to put down, and you kind of go with it. And it's the same thing I feel like with more specifically tabletop gaming. I think video games, which, you know, I've interviewed hundreds of developers, and there's so much nuts and bolts that it's really hard to have those conversations and it not just get in one ear and out the other, because there's so many other things to worry about with, you know, if one idea could take weeks of coding to figure out, and it could break the entire game. This is a little bit different, right? Like it's a little bit easier to be more creatively collaborative, I would say. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and interestingly, the difference, you talk about, you know, kind of scripting a video game and that experience, and yeah, there are decision trees that fork off, but when you create a board game, it's almost a fluid narrative, and you're creating with your rules, whether it be because of the rewards or the penalties that come with, you know, those mechanics. You're creating behavioral funnels, expected ways that people would behave, but until they get it out there, you know, it can change based on how they all interact. And so there's an interesting flow to the narrative and the underpinnings of the game that have to flow with the mechanics to create a repeatable but unique experience that they feel in control of completely.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so a little birdie told me that you got some stuff in the can. You got some stuff that's coming soon or in the works, and my experience so far. Oh, he's leaving. That was very true to the name.
You scared him off.
That was very true to the name. Curt has gone covert. He's gone. Is there anything you could share? Like, you got some projects coming up, or any you know, types of games? Anything that you I don't know. You know, video games are hard because like they're so secretive. But I feel like tabletop, it's like the more people know, the better, I guess. So
Yes,
what do you guys got?
true, yeah.
What are you guys working on?
Well, so even before we get into like some of the other stuff, which I also have sitting over here, I think very pertinent to this conversation, though, is where we took This Game is Killer.
Oh.
Now, originally, this was not called This Game is Killer. What was the name, Ivan?
The game was called It's Killing Us One at a Time.
Right.
Okay.
Now, part of development is also the marketing and planning of the game. Now, this is something that we thought was interesting and special, and we were like, you know what? This one's cool. This is like the movie Alien in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be just the movie Alien in 10
you
minutes.
son of a bitch, you did it, didn't you?
Right.
You did it.
It could be a line of games.
Oh, you did it. There's a guy at the lake. Killer on board, guy at the lake. Oh,
Right.
It's coming.
So we started thinking about, okay, well, what are some of the other movie franchises that feel as big and cinematic? Like, you know, all right, maybe not slasher movies, because, you know, that's Final Girl. That's the, you know, it's kind of an own territory. But there's some big blockbuster kind of movies that that feel in the same realm, and it's still like you versus the monsters.
I have goosebumps right now. I literally got chills and goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's like the nerdiest shit I think that has ever happened to my body. But like, you saying that literally just gave me goosebumps. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So, not by mistake, we changed the name with a little bit of arm wrestling with Ivan, because I think he truly loved the campiness of that title.
Love that name. I did.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the decision, but yes, that was one of those things where it's like, that was a fight.
Yeah. And I knew as we were having the discussion, it was breaking your heart. But the vision was, this game is killer. Sure, Alien on Board is this flavor, but now what's the next flavor? And it also had the benefit of, you know, people walking up, you know, at the convention, you're like, you know, oh, this game is killer. Tell me more. So, you know, so as we were starting to think about, you know, other kind of movie franchise, we were like, well,
which, to be clear, we were brainstorming this on the ride back from the very successful launch of
That
alien
is
on board.
correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So was
That's
It was
helpful.
Origins.
That's helpful
at
when you're thinking
Origins,
about expanding.
we had done an amazing job at sale. It was performing just the way we hoped. It was like the $15 insta buy. It was getting crowds of people crowding the table, wanting to get into play. And so we were like, okay, I'm so glad we decided to plan this for a line, because we are absolutely going to be doing this.
Yeah.
And so we started talking. And by the way, we'd even talked to Ivan and said, listen, we're going to be doing another one. So let's start thinking about what the next one is. And I think we all kind of were like, well, the thing is kind of like, that's the low hanging, my God, the next, it has to just, sure, it could be Killer Clowns. It could be lots of different things. But
the funny part about the thing was that we brainstormed it and Ivan was already planning it totally without communication.
Right.
We both groups naturally felt like it was a good step, which when we figured that out, we were very bolstered in thinking that was the correct direction.
Yeah. So and this is another thing where how does that now come together? And this is a tale. The way that this came together, it was kind of a struggle. Gaeton and I, like I said, we brainstormed all the way home and had in our heads a working design, and we didn't expect to. We just did. It was a conversation that just like sped, as we were driving down the road. So we got home and we kind of put it on paper, and it seemed to be working pretty well. And we shared it with Ivan, and I think Ivan was like, I don't know. And I said, well, listen, cool, hit me with your version of it. And so he came back and he threw a design our way, and we kept on kind of going back and forth with designs and not really quite landing, I think, happily on either side on where it was going to be. So I said, well, listen, guys, we're going to be, if we don't have this on press by, like late November, we're going to be out of luck for next year. It's going to be a year delay before we can actually get it to market.
Yeah.
So we got to figure this out. And so was it
Metatopia?
Oh, Metatopia, which is a great, by the way, people don't know, it is a wonderful game design convention dedicated prototype play testing. They bring the public in. They have publishers who are like part of the high tests, and we all get together and play everyone's prototypes and try to make them better.
I'm writing this one down.
Yeah.
It is my favorite convention of the year.
Oh, it's great.
Where do they run that?
I love it. And I go to like 6 different conventions, and that is my favorite one.
Yeah. Morristown, New Jersey.
Into my backyard.
Yeah. And that happens usually in November.
Oh,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had 2 different designs. We brought them both. We're like, let's just put them in front of people. Let's get some people in front of it and just like work together to try to find the solution. And we fielded both, and quite honestly, the wheels were coming off both.
Yeah. It was pretty alarming. So we even did a play test with all 3, the original to level set, and then both other designs for the second one to basically allow people to like see, does this feel like it's part of the same line? Like, is it giving you the same emotional connection? Does the gameplay as rewarding? And like Curt was saying, I remember looking at Ivan at one point towards the end of that playtest, and I was like, buddy, I actually have no idea what we're supposed to do right now. It was tough.
Yeah, and I think kind of Gaeton was, I think, kind of the force behind one design. Ivan was the force behind the other design, and I know there was frustrations on everyone's part. Like, they wanted their design to perform well, and neither one was quite hitting it.
No.
So we started getting down to the wire on Sunday.
Yeah.
Where at one point, I think the last playtest, we threw our hands in the air. We're like, I don't think we have a game. And so before I go further, Ivan, talk about your experience through this.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, just from the opposite perspective. Like they had shown me their design, and we played it a few times, and mechanically it worked well. I had a little trouble with it thematically.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure that it was close enough to the original to be part of the line. But again, designer judgment clouded, like somebody throws a new design of your game, like that's one of those little things that you have to get past. So I'm doing my design, which was much closer to the original in the way it played, but the game mechanically, it fell apart. Like 1 out of every 6 games seemed to work okay. And you can't have that. Like the game needs to work every single time. So it would run on long, right? And it would be confusing, like who was where when they died. And so we're running both of these, and I could actually see, like, throughout the course of the weekend that yes, they're both having problems, but my design is lagging behind. Like it's becoming like more and more I'm seeing how it's not fixable in this time frame.
Okay.
So we by the end we were focusing on Gaeton's design, and rightly so. And it was after the last play test, and we just had like a couple people meandering, and we were talking, and I don't remember what it was. One of you had this, like, I was you, right? You just had this idea, like,
Curt came in at the final hour. Yeah.
I don't even remember exactly what the idea was. Well, let's do this. And we tried it. There were like 6 of us sitting at the table, and we tried it, and it went. And then when it was over, we all looked up and we're like, oh, that worked. Let's try it again. It's like, and by the end of it, maybe we played it for another like hour or so. We played 4 games, 5 games, whatever it was. And we were like, this is it. This is the way we're going to go.
Yeah. Well, so, and with the thing, different than Alien, and, because we're kind of talking way up here, so to kind of bring you in a little bit, the difference between Alien, it's hunting you compartment by compartment, and it's an AI.
Right.
With the thing, the whole hook about the thing is you don't know who it is. Mm-hmm. The thing is one of you. It's among you. It's hiding as you. And so that really impacts the experience of gameplay. Now, we absolutely, like, the whole get 2 cards, play 2 cards. That is the core design. That had to be maintained, I think, but everyone believed that was very important. But where we started to like choose different directions was, first of all, like, how do you simulate the fact that it's a who goes there moment? And in one case, the thing was, it was the doctor, right? You were working with the
alien. Replacing the alien was actually the good guy.
Yeah.
And he was hunting the things. He was hunting only the evil players.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the other side, we had created a system where the thing changed every turn. You didn't know who was the thing from turn to turn.
Right.
So when they were taken over, they were off screen in the human cells, and they had to now play the monster. But in this version of the game, it was almost always like a last player standing. So if you killed off some people, okay, I got closer to winning as well. So that was kind of, first of all, the philosophical debate, which feels closer to the thing. And I think that was a big arm wrestle for a long time.
Yeah.
And then when we finally, the problem was that in both cases, the games were running way too long, and that's where the wheels had fallen off both designs, and we could not figure out a way to actually keep it tighter, because if it's player elimination, and if you have people sitting out too long, it's death for the game.
Yeah.
So And so finally, yes, after everyone had thrown up their hands and were ready to like tear up both games and throw them out, I was like, wait a minute. The problem is we need more people to die more quickly. So we have been using, just like in This Game is Killer, the priority numbers are 1, 2, and 3. And whoever is sharing a number with a thing in that room is dead. Well, we just need more people dead. So let's not have 1, 2, and 3. Let's have 1 and 2.
Uh-oh.
So now the odds of you dying if you're in the room with the thing go up. In fact, a huge crowd could die very quickly. And so that was like I said, just humor me. I'm writing on cards. Let's put this out there and let's try it. And that's when we finally saw things click.
Pun intended?
Yeah. And I tell you what, so I think at this point, we're like all super, super thrilled to be bringing
look at
This Game is Killer, Frozen Horror.
Frozen Horror. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you my address right when we're done.
Yep. Now, one of the differences is that this is a positional movement game. So unlike just having a location card, you are physically moving your token from room to room, and you don't want to be in the same room as anyone else because they could be the thing.
Right.
So if you come in my room, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing?
Uh-huh.
So now maybe they just moved in there to be safe. You don't know.
You're kind of tickling that Among Us stuff,
Yeah.
That's I always wondered why that wasn't more analog. Like, why wasn't there an analog version of that type of which one of my friends is here to screw? Like, obviously, there's like Secret Hitler and stuff like that. Like, where there's always there's
lots of social deduction all over there.
Well, even specifically,
we had a game actually called The Menace Among Us. It was not created because of Among Us. We created it before that exploded.
Right.
But when I launched it at that time, the industry was undergoing some changes in distribution where it was a failure to launch because I was basically out of distribution for 6 months.
Yikes.
And so by the time we got it back onto the marketplace, like the moment had passed and it was going to be a dead product on arrival. And all of a sudden, Among Us popped and people were like, hey, why isn't there something like Among Us out there in board gaming? And people said, wait a second, there is. And we blew out the entire print run in a month. But I wasn't sure whether really the moment had truly passed for the game. So I did not reprint it, but it was an amazing game.
For the record, fans still love it and ask about it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got a little fan following.
Might have to do a second run. I don't know.
We should revisit it. Social deduction is huge.
Yeah.
Actually, social deduction was when we started working on this, because I had just started playing Blood on the Clock Tower when we were working on this. And so it was in the back of my head. And so it was like, the thing, it's got to be social deduction, right? You don't know who's the thing and who's not the thing. And it kept overcomplicating the game that I was trying to make.
Yeah, because in that sense, who the thing is only half the battle. Like, you have to figure out a way, like, okay, if we know who the thing is, it's still the thing. Like, it's not going to be something that we could just kick in the nuts and run away. Like, it's not.
Yeah, it's super hard to kill the thing.
Yeah. So like, you also have to kind of throw that in there as well. All right. Well, this was like probably. I mean, this was awesome. This was a great conversation, but we have a tradition where we're gonna do to close out the show. We do a little rapid fire, where I get to know you a little bit better by asking you ridiculous questions. So
the answer is blue. 7.
You're close. You're close. So what we'll do, I'll try and do them where all three of you have to, like, oh, this is actually a good one. This is, if anybody here has watched DevDive, a conversational podcast, this is one of our favorite questions to ask when we have a group for the interview. So, Ivan, Your phone rings in the middle of the night. It's 3:00 in the morning. It is the popo. The police are calling you because Curt has been arrested. What was his crime?
Wow.
I can answer that one.
Yeah, really.
Oh, you're going to, but not about you.
I'm trying to think. I'm totally drawing a blank. Like, I can't envision Curt committing a crime.
Oh, it's very sweet, and you're not the first person to ever say that. Oh,
But it's true. Like, oh, maybe because Connecticut is the traffic state, so maybe he was breaking traffic laws to get somewhere.
That's on point, my friend.
Gaeton,
That's great.
what was Ivan's crime?
Oh man. I'm gonna say Ivan's crime would be getting into an altercation with his buddy Pete over game rules.
Wait, that's not a crime. I get medals for that.
It depends if phone calls are made, honestly. If the phones are locked away, nobody has to know. Okay, Curt, what was Gaeton's crime?
Gaeton's crime. I mean, I was going to be talking about unruly beard and, it misbehaving in a bar. I don't know, but I don't know. What's a good crime for you, Gaeton?
Maybe disturbing the peace with my adventure party impressions.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yes.
Oh boy.
Which ties right back into a lovely gamma evening. Our first time like really hanging out with retailers and Gaeton's, first time connecting. And we had just a wonderful, slightly drunken role-playing adventure. And
we'll call it slightly, yeah. We'll go with that one.
And your character was disorderly, but you're a fine
So
human.
I found out the next morning that I made a great impression, but I wasn't aware of the impression I made until the next morning.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's usually how it goes. So it's okay. It's always a guessing game until tomorrow when you get the emails. Okay. Do either of you sleep with your socks on?
I have been known to do this.
I will do that sometimes.
Only when I'm sick.
Interesting. Okay. Could you escape the monkey enclosure at the zoo?
Are they feeding me?
The monkeys
Yes,
or
but
the
they're not
zookeepers? They are all probably screaming, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Help him!
Okay.
Help him!"
He's trying to decide if he wants to, actually move in.
Yeah. Do I need the effort? Yeah.
I'm a wily person, and I would find a way.
I think I could, even though I don't know how to pick a lock. I think I could figure out a way to get out.
I would use diplomacy
really
and make the monkeys my friend.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I do have my answer. I wouldn't try to get out because if I try to get out and fail, I've just proven I'm the same intelligence as the monkeys in the cage with me.
Wow.
I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I don't hate that answer. That's actually not a bad answer. Is breakfast cereal a soup?
Breakfast cereal is not a soup.
It's closer. Well, it's closer to like a gazpacho.
It's a soup-like treat.
A soup?
Oh,
like
you.
I'm going to say no. You know why it's not a soup? Because milk is not a broth.
Oh,
Interesting.
Okay.
like
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Well, some would say that when you make cereal, you're making sugar broth.
Well, at that point, it's getting closer to, because of all the solid chunks, you're on dangerous stew territory.
Oh yeah, we're crossing the stew territory. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. Let's see. We all know that 6 is afraid of 7. We all know why 6 is afraid of 7. But why is 4 afraid of commitment?
I mean, not if you're poly.
Okay. All right.
Sure. Why is 4 afraid of commitment? Oh
yeah,
my
why?
goodness.
You know, 6 is afraid of 7 because 7, 8, 9. But why is 4 afraid of commitment, man?
I think you got me, man. I think I don't really have a good one.
No,
for
that's
you.
why it's
Definitely ask my friends the question at work tomorrow.
That's why it's
Yeah.
on a doc, because I need to know these answers and their life's, you know, mysteries. We'll do actually. This is a new tradition that I've started on the show.
In the middle of another tradition?
Yes, it's a tradition within the tradition.
Oh, okay.
It's like, you know, yelling at your drunk uncle at Christmas dinner. You know, it's the tradition within the tradition. The Christmas dinner is the tradition, but then you get into a fight with your uncle. That's the other tradition. Okay. So the question is, which IP is your dream IP to make a board game of?
Ooh.
Now, this is kind of a loaded question because we already spoke a little bit about, you know, the horror IP, but I want to throw an idea at you, and it's probably super easy to get this IP. It is not, but think about this. You and your friends play a group of low-level thugs, just trying to do the heist.
Okay.
But there's a Batman among us in the rafters, picking you off one by one as you're trying to do your mission for the Joker. That's my dream. Is the monster is Batman and you're playing the idiot thieves trying to get away from the Batman.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
We have had way worse ideas ourselves.
It's like, I was thinking of like Arkham City, like where you're just like hopping from gargoyle to gargoyle and just picking them off one by one. I'm like, dude, that's totally a monster taking out the players around the table.
Yeah,
that totally works. But what's your dream IP? I want to know, Curt, what's your dream IP? If you could,
now, are you talking about specifically for Killer or to work with?
Any board game, just a board game like that. You know, if you were just given carte blanche, here's the IP, make a game. And what kind of game would it be?
Man, so like two of my dream IPs are Star Trek, and I'll say Jurassic Park, but what I really mean is anything with dinosaurs.
True, he loves
okay.
dinosaur.
Okay. Look at the shirt I'm wearing today.
There you go. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So are we looking for a through line on this idea?
No. Just I'm just curious.
Those are absolutely two things I would love to build, and I had ideas for running, you know, like Adventure Party. If you're familiar with Adventure Party?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So Adventure Party, I had also considered if it had like been a blowout success, I would have done Adventure Party as a sci-fi Trek lookalike as well. Okay. Where the characters, because they're, you know, you couldn't be just your own character. You might need to be helmsman for this thing, or the engineer, or whatever the situation called for. So there'd be like a group of characters. You need to pull one in as you need it. And I'm going to be this guy, and here I'm going to tell my tale and still play the Adventure Party. And then instead of, you know, the magic items, it'd be, you know, technobabble that you have to use in creating your story. But so that's a great example. I wanted to do that for Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is great.
Gaeton, what about you?
So probably two I can think of as well. So one I would love to do. I'm actually wearing the hoodie for it. Dead Space. So I actually, before we knew just how lighthearted the Killer experience was going to be, when I was thinking of, you know, getting killed by an alien on a spaceship, some of the initial naming inspirations were kind of, that Curt and I were brainstorming, were kind of akin to like a Dead Space vibe, but, you know, it wasn't as goofy and charming, so they ended up not making the cut. But I mean, that's my favorite horror franchise in general. It's just the right amount of sci-fi, just the right amount of horror for me. I would love to make like a bit of a meteor, even if it was like a single player game experience, because you're all alone in that game too.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But if there's like a dream IP for me, it's Pokemon.
Yeah. That's what I was waiting for.
So I'm a Pokemon kid. I grew up right alongside it the whole time. Both of my tattoos are Pokemon tattoos. And boy, I would just love to have that, IP in a game. I mean, I think a lot of people would. I mean, it's incredibly successful IP, but that would just, full circle my childhood kind of gaming kickstart into a game. So
Awesome. Ivan, what about you?
So it's funny because there are so many IPs that I love, and Star Trek is at the top, right? I grew up on the original Star Trek.
Yeah.
And it is to this day, it's still my favorite thing to watch. Just sit down and watch it. I don't know that I would necessarily want to make a Star Trek game. There's so many out there, and it's just been so hammered. Actually, there are two IPs that are. They're not. I don't know that they're particularly marketable at this point. One is Body Snatchers. Because the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers happens to be my all-time favorite movie. Yeah, but we talked about this. Like, you kept saying mine was Body Snatchers more, which just kept fueling me. The other one is also a very old movie called Them. I don't know if either.
I think I know that one.
Curt, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
Where with these giant ants, and the whole concept of the movie is that there are these giant ants and when they finally get to them and destroy the nest, they realize that queens have hatched and flown off. And so they do this projection of what happens if there are more queens, and it would take like less than a year for humanity to be extinct. So as a game, you'd have like two very, very cool levels, where it's just like this sort of larger sort of in between rounds game where you're hunting down where all the new nests are, kind of like Pandemic sort of. And then like another smaller adventure game where you're actually going into the hives and killing the ants. And I think it would be if you could hit the right mechanics, it'd be fantastic. And actually, you don't even need an IP for that. Working on that.
Busy.
Yeah, a little bit big for killer, but
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of the conversation. This was an absolute blast. Anytime you guys want to talk about a product or anything, please reach out, because this is great. This was an absolute blast. Once again, folks, this game is killer. Alien on board, and apparently we're gonna have our second version very soon. It was called what was it called? Frozen Horror.
Yeah, look for it in June.
No, that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
The time just goes way too quickly. I feel like
I hear you, man.
It's been scary, but you could follow Smirk and Dagger on social media at Smirk and Dagger. You can follow us at Indie Rift. Is there anything else you want to tell the folks at home about anything you got coming up, or where they could buy all the games and all that fun stuff?
I tell you what, Ivan, you go first, and then I'll have one quick plug.
Ooh, quick plug.
I don't know why I'm going first. I don't have anything.
Oh, okay.
Well, anything for.
Oh, look at that. Kurt's back.
If you got a place where you you have designs and things that you like to show off and share.
I mean, I have, things work. I showed them something the other day that needs a little bit more work. But, it takes 4 years to make a game.
True. So we are going to be putting on Kickstarter a place for all my books at the very end of January on the 28th. This is a game about collecting, organizing, and admiring a book collection.
Holy shit. I know so many people that would devour that game. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look in the camera right now. Tracy, your game is here. It has arrived. Here it is.
So and the beautiful part about this game is that as you're doing these activities in your apartment, creating new stacks and that, are these little projects that bring you joy. It also it boosts your social battery, which when it gets high enough allows you to leave your apartment to go into the village so you can get more books.
Of course, it always leads to more books.
Yeah,
It always leads to more books.
So this will be coming very, very soon to Kickstarter.
That is phenomenal. Thank you again, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. And folks, if you like what you see, please consider supporting Indie Rift on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Indie Rift. We want to thank our Patreon producer, Colton, the journeyman, Nestler. Thank you so much. We cannot continue to do this without all of your support. So thank you very much. That's going to do it for us here at DevDive Side Table. And as always, please be excellent to each other.